Hi everyone, welcome to this fortnightly Tools of Frontline Staff session. We've got three presentations today. Beth from Welcome Hackney, Stevie and Jane from Young Minds, and Stephanie from the Council's climate team. And I'm going to pass over to Beth. So yeah, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hi everybody. Just make sure I'm presenting okay. Okay, that should be working. I think that's showing up. So yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm here to talk about Hackney becoming a borough of sanctuary. This is a kind of shared project, I suppose, between myself and my team, Welcome Hackney, but also strategy and policy colleagues, specifically Bhupinder Verdi, who sends her apologies, she's not available today, but her and I are kind of co-working on this piece of work. So just to say that it's very much a kind of a shared project. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a borough sanctuary, what it means to be a borough sanctuary, and the journey that Hackney's on in terms of becoming a borough sanctuary, and how others can get involved. So to start, in terms of what is a borough sanctuary? So the organisation City of Sanctuary was formed in 2005 with the aim of building a movement of welcome across the UK in terms of refugees, migrants and people seeking asylum who settle in town, cities across the UK. And I've kind of taken a quote from their website there in terms of wherever we come from, we all have a right to feel safe. And that's why city by city and community by community, we're building a more welcoming UK for people rebuilding their lives here. And lots of different kind of community spaces can become a place of sanctuary recognised by the organisation, including universities, arts organisations, schools. So I do encourage all of us really to have a look at the website, have a look at the movement and the organisation, because perhaps there are people on the call or watching us afterwards who work in places that could also explore becoming a place of sanctuary. In terms of local authorities, at the end of 2023, there were 12 local authorities who had borough sanctuary status. And I know there've been already a few kind of awards granted this year, so that number will be higher towards the end of this year, which is really exciting. In terms of becoming a borough sanctuary, so it's an accreditation, it's a status, it's a recognition that a borough in this instance has kind of come together and sought certification that recognises that they are a place of welcome, that we have the structures, the culture, the kind of awareness raising, the awareness building, to ensure that in all the different interactions that people might have with the local authority, there is a nuanced understanding of what it means to have settled in the borough, and being supportive to that end, to ensure that people feel welcome and people feel safe. And so there's a set of criteria that as a local authority we will have to sort of put forward in evidence in order to get the status, and they fall under three categories. So, and there's multiple different criteria in each, but I've just given kind of one example. So the first criteria is around learn, so finding out what it means to be seeking sanctuary, be actively involved in awareness raising. So sometimes that can be as simple as understanding who kind of falls within that category, what it means and what different immigration statuses, etc. And one example where we can evidence that is evidence of awareness raising, so and including that in our everyday business. So for example, I'm doing some work at the moment to see how we can involve that in our staff induction, in our staff training, so that everybody who joins the Hackney Council gets made aware of this and aware of what it means to be a borough sanctuary, what it means to be seeking sanctuary. The next kind of category for the criteria is embed, so take positive action to make welcome and inclusion part of the values of your organisation or community, to support people who are seeking asylum, people who are refugees, and include them in your activities. And so an example of that, and something that we're really keen to work on, is producing a written strategy which sets out commitments for the next 3 years. So our ambitions for the future, what we want from this piece of work, And that can be really varied. There's lots of different things that might come from that, and that's where I think there's lots of different strands and themes to that. That might be in health, that might be in education, in schools, in youth work, in housing. You know, it can be really kind of cross-departmental, I suppose, in terms of the council and all the different areas that fall within that. And then sharing your vision and achievements. So letting others know about the positive contribution that people seeking sanctuary make to our society and the benefits of a welcoming culture to everyone. So that can be things like participation in Refugee Week, which Hackney Council was this year, and other cultural events. And at the moment within Welcome Hackney, we're looking at how we can really build out a great calendar of events across 2025 that mark different kind of significant cultural events and themes such as Refugee Week. We'll also be doing a couple of things in December for the International Day of Migration, which is on the 18th of December. In terms of why it's important, so threefold here. So to celebrate the borough's history of being a welcoming borough and of being a place of settlement for so many diverse communities. And obviously all of us here, we all live, work in Hackney. We know how many different diverse communities live here and have settled here over many, many years, centuries. But obviously also particularly in the past sort of 100 years, how many different communities, Kurdish communities, Haredi communities, lots of different, the Windrush generation, etc. So we know how much Hackney has benefited and kind of prospered in the wake of that kind of increased diversity. It's an opportunity to recognise the welcome that Hackney residents, community organisations and the council provide to those who arrive in the borough. And I kind of really meaningfully separate those out as well to say that, you know, whilst this is a work towards the council achieving the status of borough sanctuary, we absolutely recognise that this goes hand in hand and couldn't be done without Hackney residents and with the organisations that also work within Hackney, who provide invaluable services and support to new residents. And it's an opportunity to come together and identify our ambitions for the future and how we can further build on the welcome that we provide to new residents. Not every community obviously has had has felt a welcome, and I think there's a recognition of that, you know, in terms of over the past sort of, you know, centuries, etc., last 100 years, etc. There have been, you know, different experiences from different communities, and I think, you know, and I'm speaking sort of, you know, nationwide, you know, beyond the local. And obviously most recently over the past few years with the hostile environment. So I think we really want to also recognise that and say, what can we do to further and advance that work so that we can make sure that we are working in a positive way and working constructively for the welcome of new residents. In terms of what we've done so far, just in this kind of category of achieving this status, so one of the first things that a council has to do is to pass a motion. That was done in July 2023. So the council passed the motion, passed that commitment to become a borough sanctuary. Then similarly, the Welcome Hackney team was established. So we are a service sort of dedicated to supporting refugees, migrants and people seeking asylum across the borough. So we, for example, support those who have resettled in Hackney under Homes for Ukraine, under the Afghan resettlement schemes. We've also funded support for people seeking asylum and living in Home Office accommodation in the borough. And in May, we established an open access drop-in for refugees, migrants and people seeking asylum. I've got a flyer for that on my last slide, so that if those of you who might not be aware of that drop-in, you can certainly signpost anybody that you work with to access that drop-in and access our support. In terms of the next steps, and I suppose one of the reasons, you know, we came here today and really interested to get people's involvement, and, you know, really happy to have conversations separately with people after this, is we'll be working to put together our submission for borough sanctuary status, and we want to do this in partnership with those with lived experience of settling in Hackney and with voluntary and community organisations. So we'll be establishing a group in the new year to put this framework together and put the evidence together and do the kind of piece of work that we need to do in order to apply for certification. So evidencing the work we've done to date, but also critically, and I think this is where we're particularly interested in having the involvement of other organisations and those with lived experience, is how we identify our ambitions for the future. And so we're particularly keen to hear from those and organisations who work with people with lived experience, so that we can really ensure that they're at the centre of this work, and that anybody who is interested in being involved in this work has the chance to be. We are in the process at the moment of kind of working out the logistics of setting up a group, and really want that to be kind of an open invite really to those who are interested in being part of that work. We're working closely with Councillor Williams as well, who will chair and oversee the group. So yeah, really keen to hear from people. I've got on my last slide, I've put my email address and Bipinder's email address. So yeah, really keen. I know I think I've spoken to a couple of people who are on the call already about starting to advance this work. And so yes, please do reach out to us if you're interested. I will pause there and then just, that's kind of the presentation I have for today, just to kind of, as I say, introduce what we're doing around the borough sanctuary work. As I say, I put my details there if anybody's interested in being involved. So yeah, thought I'd stop here for any questions. And then that's also our flyer for our drop-in, which I'm also happy to circulate if anybody isn't aware of it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Beth. That was great. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions for how they might want to get involved in this work? Yeah, or questions for Beth? I can kick us off. Oh, Rose, go ahead.
Not a question, just to, as you said about circulating the poster, if you could do that as like a PNG or PDF, that would be great, and I'll make sure that's shown at CAMS.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you. What's the easiest way, John? Because I'm happy to kind of take emails, or shall I just send it to you? Or?
You can send it to me and I will put it out in the newsletter, which I think everyone gets. If you don't get my fortnightly poverty reduction newsletter, then let me know and I can add you to the list. Annabelle, I think you were next. I don't think we can hear you, Annabelle, but you're not on mute. So I'm wondering if there's an issue at your end. Stephanie, do you want to come in?
No, just wanted to say that we did receive the leaflet, so thank you. And you have been reaching out to a lot of departments, which is great. I think my team was talking to Katie about arranging, so hopefully we'll be doing a session. It might be a bit much for us to attend, every week, but we will try to attend at least 1 or 2 sessions before the Christmas. But yeah, just want to say great work and really happy to be supporting however we can, because a lot of the things that we do, even though it's got like a climate or sustainability angle to it, a lot of the times it's about helping people with the cost of living, such as like our Zero Waste Hub program, which is about repairing and reducing waste. So yeah, really happy to support it. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, no, definitely it'd be great to have you come along to the hub, and yeah, we do invite anybody who might be interested in coming along to the hub and sort of seeing the work that we do, but we can also facilitate people having stalls there, etc. if that's of interest. So yeah, great that you're going to be coming along, and yeah, as you say, your work is crucial as well.
Thanks, Stephanie. Annabelle's put some comments in the chat. So just to say here that here at Homerton Healthcare, keen to think about what this might mean for us. We know understanding of healthcare rights and access to healthcare is an important issue here. And yeah, keen to think about what a borough sanctuary might mean for us as a whole partnership. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know, Annabelle, we've already spoken, haven't we, about how we can work together on this. So yes, absolutely. I'll be reaching out to you and seeking definitely, I see health as like a big theme of any kind of framework that we put together. So yeah, absolutely, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Annabelle. Yeah, I guess off the back of that, because you mentioned writing the strategy, have you already got a sort of rough sense of what the priorities might be beyond the sort of learn, embed, share framework, in terms of like what the biggest needs are in different communities and sort of what this project might bring about, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So Bhupinder and I both kind of started on this piece of work in the summer. And so the first kind of few months we've been reaching out to different spaces and places. I know we obviously came to the Faith Forum a few weeks ago to start to have this conversation and to see what some of that initial feedback is. I'm also exploring the idea of maybe also doing a survey to kind of try and go as far and wide as possible to get that feedback, so that we've got that starting place when we do start the group up. I kind of envisage that it will be across themes such as health, such as education, such as housing and things internal to the council as well, in terms of our training and our induction. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm kind of like, we don't want to get too far into it, because at the moment, I want to make sure we've got people with lived experience at the centre of it, and VCS organisations at the centre of it. So it's kind of one of those things that when we're in the group and we start that up, which we'll certainly keep people informed on, that we can start to shape that. And I think another really, really key part of it will be support for those with no recourse to public funds, because that is, the most acute end, really, in many ways, in terms of the support and the access to services that people might not necessarily have if they have no recourse. So that definitely has to be a big feature in what we can keep doing in that space.
Great, thanks. Sounds good. Rose just put in a chat, happy to be a contact point at ELVT for looking at this work in health. So maybe I can intro you guys outside this meeting.
Yes.
And then you guys can connect.
That'd be amazing. Thank you.
Great. Genevieve.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much, Beth. I'm with Benefits and Homeless Prevention and have done quite a bit of work with Eden Monroe. And I'm just curious, in your welcome group, are you finding, I have two parts of the question really, are you finding most of the people you're working with are currently seeking asylum, or would you say the majority have already had their decision?
That's a big question. I think within the hub, I think what we have started to see since May is a real unmet need. So people who might not have been known to any service whatsoever. And within that, we get both, but do see a lot of people who haven't maybe applied for status yet, or haven't sought asylum yet. So it is a mix. I think it's one of those things where and I think one of the things that we're really conscious of as a local authority is that maybe those who don't have status are a bit more nervous about local authorities, the Home Office, etc. So I think I'm also really aware that we might not be seeing the full picture. And again, that's where then the work with VCS organisations is so critical, because we know they are trusted organisations. They are organisations that people feel sort of safe and comfortable to go to, whereas sometimes they might be a bit more nervous of kind of the more formal government institutions. So I think that's also something to think about, what we can do about that, how we can explore that in the borough sanctuary work. But yeah, I think it's probably a real mix, and I think there's probably a real kind of unmet need and people that we're not aware of yet.
But that's a good sign that you are seeing people who might be a small group who are hesitant due to our official status. And I'm also curious, are you informing people who have recently had a decision that biometric residence permits are no longer valid to show their evidence? I mean, it doesn't change their status, but they must apply for e-visas before the end of the year. Otherwise, okay, good.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of fortunate in a sense that because we can we can know who they are. We can know who the people who are seeking asylum in Hackney are, because we do have the relationships with Home Office and Clear Springs. We are working in the hotels, so we commission migrants organised to work in the hotels. So we do have access to that population, which is really important, so that then we can do that information sharing. And we can do that, making sure that people are aware. And we also have a single homeless prevention service that we've commissioned, who directly provide support to those who've just been granted refugee status to help them access housing, because obviously that's significant. You've got 28 days to sort everything out and apply for benefits and find somewhere to live and find work, etc., which we know is incredibly challenging. So yes, there are kind of quite robust systems in place now to reach those people. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Genevieve.
Great, thanks both. Does anyone have any other questions for Beth? Just conscious of time, and we've got 2 more presentations to come. So if no one has any other comments or questions, we'll move on. But thanks so much for coming along, Beth. That was great. And yeah, do keep coming along when you're future stages of the project. That'll be really good.
Thanks.
Cool.
Yes, thanks, Beth.
Great. I think I'm passing on to Stevie now, who's here from Young Minds, and Jane from Young Minds is also on the call. So yeah, Stevie, please take it away.
Thanks so much, John, and hi everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for letting me and Jane join you today. We're going to be talking about Young Minds, but more specifically about the parent helpline service that we run, which might be of use to any parents who are on the call today, people you know, or actually families that you're working with. So I'm going to share my screen as I've got a presentation, and yeah, we'll get started. And sorry, my screen's changed. So could someone just say that, yes, if you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect, brilliant. So yeah, in terms of who we are as a charity, some of you may or may not have heard of us. So we are Young Minds, and we're the UK's leading charity fighting for young people's mental health. And really our sort of vision is that no young person feels alone with their mental health, and they are able to access the support whenever they need it. And so we, as part of our work, and where me and Jane sort of are situated in the organisation, we are across the Parents Helpline Service. And so we are here to offer information, advice and emotional support to parents and carers who are worried about a child or young person's mental health. So just so that you can see in a nutshell kind of our reach and our impact of the service. Last year we supported over 13,000 families across all areas of the UK. We have a dedicated section on our website solely for parents and carers, which I'll talk a little bit more about on later on in the presentation, which receives lots of kind of web page views and downloads every year. And we are really trying as an organisation and specifically as a team to really increase the number of parents and carers and communities that are unfortunately hardly reached by our services at the moment, and predominantly that's Black, Asian and racialised sort of parents and carers. And we don't all just want to drive more demand by making relationships and doing our outreach work, but we also want to make sure we're constantly evolving and informing and developing our service so that we can meet and tailor our advice accordingly to different families' needs. And that's where we continually evaluate and gather insight around how we can improve our services. And just to give you a sense of kind of the impact and feedback that we have, because we know that it's a really bold and brave step to maybe pick up the phone or chat to us and actually speak to someone that you don't know about some really sensitive sort of concerns. So we hope that these kind of provide some level of reassurance and encouragement, from others that have used the service. So 85% of families feel more confident to support their child following following a conversation with us, and 82% would say that they learned something new after speaking to one of our advisors. And yeah, as you can see on the screen, 70% of parents and carers said their young person's mental health had actually improved, which we find quite outstanding, especially when our conversations are usually one-off and we're not, you know, a repeat service, and we can't provide direct counselling and therapies, but we can offer practical tips and strategies that parents can use at home, and also give advice around how they can navigate further support and services if needed. And in terms of kind of the remit of our service, so as I said before, we pride ourselves on giving high quality and tailored advice and support to parents and main carers of children and young people aged 0 to 25. And we intentionally have a really broad age remit, just because of all of the different developmental stages, transitions, and challenges that young people are increasingly facing nowadays. And what we hear a lot of the time is how that sort of 16 plus age group can sometimes fall through the gap when transitioning into adulthood. So we feel it's really important that we encompass all of those big milestones. And as was shared before, we support families all across the UK, and we're completely free and confidential. And I think it's really important to note that we're here for main carers too, whether that be kinship carers, foster parents, adoptive parents, even grandparents and siblings. We're really aware that lots of families are going to have different structures, makeups, dynamics, and sometimes the parent and carer isn't best placed to deliver the advice or, you know, the guidance that we can offer. So yeah, our advisors are specially trained to support carers as well as sort of parents too. And we have what we would say 4 main channels of support. So the first one is our telephone service, which has been our longest standing channel of support. And this is where parents and carers can really receive much more detailed information and guidance. We have, you know, longer conversations. We're able to ask a lot more questions, ascertain a lot more information, and take time to walk people through certain techniques and strategies too. And it lends itself to being able to offer much more emotional support, which increasingly we're finding families are really needing from us, given, you know, the challenges that they're facing and how desperate they are to seek support for their young people in their lives. We also have a web chat, and we can direct sort of families to services, our own resources, and give some basic level of information. We really aim this service at parents and carers who are maybe just starting to become concerned, having those emerging worries, and are maybe at the earlier stages of support. And also when our chat is offline, parents and carers can submit an email request, and we can give a tailored response within 3 to 5 working days as well. So I will be sharing these slides, but you can see our contact information on there. And currently we're open Monday to Fridays, 9:30 till 4 p.m. And so I just wanted to touch a little bit about our helpline advisors, just to give a sense of who is actually working on the service. So we have a mixture of what we would say general and specialist advisors. So general advisors are really there to sort of respond to kind of the most commonly heard concerns, things like anxiety, depression, self-harm, and are all incredibly knowledgeable about a whole host of concerns. But, you know, sometimes families are in need of more expert or clinical guidance. So we do have a team of specialists who work with us part-time and maintain other work within relevant settings, such as being a therapist, counsellor, you know, working in another mental health settings. They are exposed to like the challenges and the therapeutic support that can be offered, and they're just on hand to have longer conversations. They can explore things in a bit more detail, especially the more complex concerns, and offer a bit more expert advice and guidance around those. And all of our specialists have to have a relevant clinical qualification. They have to be either registered or accredited to a professional body, and as I said before, they have to be in another relevant setting for the duration of their time with us. And we really pride ourselves on, you know, taking a trauma-informed approach. So again, dependent on parents and carers' concerns, there is a way, as soon as they call us, that they can be triaged over to the specialist team, and that just saves them from having to retell their story. But sometimes our general advisors will deem that actually it'd be much more beneficial for that parent or carer to speak to a specialist, and they'll be transferred over to that team. And we are a completely confidential service, unless we deem sort of a young person or adult for that matter is at risk of significant harm. And following any conversation to the helpline, we will send an e-pack if parents and carers consent to that, full of kind of resources and relevant links. And equally on our web chat service, parents and carers can receive a transcript, so they don't have to worry about remembering all of the information that's been given to them. And so in terms of our translation service as well, and this is something that is really, really important to make sure we're removing as many barriers as possible for families to get in touch with us. But they are absolutely free to access. We're able to use a third-party service which has over 200 different languages available, and the parent and carer can let the advisor know if they require a translation, and we can connect within a minute or so, usually in terms of getting a translator in that language. We also provide translation services across our digital channels. So again, if they were to contact us via web chat or email, we're able to provide a translation service there as well. And just to touch on accessibility, if a parent or carer does have a hearing or speech impairment, they can contact our telephone service via Type Talk and Text Direct. Or actually what we found is better sometimes in these situations to remove that kind of third party from the conversation, is for them to actually use our web chat function instead. Lots of professionals we speak to are often keen to learn a little bit more about kind of our safeguarding practices, and we do have our own sort of policy and framework that we work towards, and we make sure any advisor that is working on the service is trained not only in our sort of safeguarding procedures around what questions we ask, what advice that we give, but also around suicide risk and safety planning, because unfortunately suicide risk is one of our most common concerns that we hear. So it's really important that advisors are as confident or as comfortable as they can be to hold those conversations. But we do also have a dedicated team of safeguarding officers. One safeguarding officer will be on duty every day, and they will be on hand to support the team. So relaying advice about what can be given, talking through situations to see what the best course of action might be. But they are also on hand to take over any crisis calls and make referrals to any external agencies if that's deemed appropriate. We also on our web chat assistant have some branching available, so that actually when a parent or carer lands on that chat assistant, they are asked a few quick questions around whether they are requiring emergency or urgent support, and if so, we can give some detailed information advice on where they should be contacting. And in the last year or so, we've developed a partnership with the NSPCC, which are the leading charity for safeguarding children and young people, and actually we are able to triage families over to the NSPCC, which has been really welcomed by a lot of families to receive further support and guidance as well. And we really recognise that, although we speak to the parent or caregiver, and usually it's about one child of concern, the experiences and the problems that they're facing will impact on the whole family in some degree. And so it's really common for parents and carers to talk to us about more than one child within a call, or actually talking about how this is impacting on their other children. So yeah, we would really encourage, if you are working with families or indeed know of any families who are really struggling, to get in touch with us for further support and advice at such a difficult time. And just to give a sense of kind of what we are able to advise on, this is just a snapshot of our common concerns. And so our number one, which is consistent across years and months and weeks and days, is anxiety, which is, it seems to be forever increasing at the moment. School-based problems and neurodivergence are core concerns that have really increased over the last couple of years. And we hear a lot about anger and aggression and self-harm, but the remit really spans much more broadly, all the way from like trauma, gender identity, sexuality concerns, all the way through to eating disorders, psychosis, and so on. So again, these are just our main concerns that we're hearing on a daily basis. And just to give some indicators as to when, you know, it might be helpful to contact us and seek support, we would often advise when there's, you know, a real sustained change in a child's sort of mood, behaviours, presentation that is ongoing over, you know, kind of several weeks. Any changes in things like sleeping or eating habits, and they can become more or less, becoming more withdrawn, less communicative, and finding it really difficult to engage in other areas. So whether that's school, whether that's clubs, at home, with family members, friends, and, you know, not finding maybe enjoyment in things, becoming quite angry, upset, irritable. You know, these are all key signs, not an exhaustive list, but key signs as to when it might be a good idea to get in touch and sound these concerns out a bit further. And I'm just going to leave this briefly on the screen for you to read. I won't read it out, but this is just a short quote taken from one of our parents called Catherine, who contacted the service last year about her son, which was diagnosed with autism. And actually, she's gone on to become a media kind of spokesperson for the parent helpline. But hopefully this just really shows the kind of level of impact that our advice and service that can provide to families. And in terms of our website, again, I would strongly encourage anyone on the call, if you haven't already done so, to have a little nose, have a little explore around what we've got on there. But the majority of our website information and pages is actually PIFTIC accredited. So this is a health accreditation kind of kite mark, if you like. And it means that it's all of our content that has this accreditation mark has been taken through a really robust process where we involve young people, parents and carers, as well as professionals. And we're working hard to ensure we've had it for about a year and working towards getting as many of our pages accredited as possible. We also have an A to Z guide on mental health topics that provides lots of context, advice, tips, strategies, and signposting to other agencies that might help. We have our parent helpline landing page, and here's where you can find lots more information about our services, what we can provide, and also where you'd find the button for our web chat service. But we also have pages for professionals like yourselves on the call who work with children and young people that might also really be useful to your work. And yeah, here's just a little screenshot of kind of what we have on the parents and carer section. We also have a brilliant blog section that we've relaunched this year, where parents and carers are sharing their lived experience, their stories, in the hope that that can support others too. And again, this is just a little flavour of what you would find on the professional section. So you've got things like the mood battery, which are downloadable resources that you can print and use with maybe young people that you work with, but also guides on, you know, with lots of tips and strategies, for instance, on how you can help young people managing their anger. So definitely check that out if you haven't already done so. And sadly, Jill, one of our parent engagement officers, couldn't be here today to deliver this presentation. But if you do have sort of your own networks, your own teams, other places that you might find helpful, we do have all of these things on offer where we can join team meetings and host information sessions with parents and carers, but also with other staff, volunteers and professionals to let them learn a little bit more about us and engage encouraging some discussion around the challenges that they face. We're also able to provide kind of leaflets, PDFs, information that can go into newsletter bulletins. And if you are hosting any events, conferences, and things like that, we're also very happy and keen to have exhibition stands and things like that. So if you do if these are of interest, please do get in touch, and I'll leave details with John to circulate those. And again, this is just an idea of the kinds of things that we can share, so that you feel really comfortable, confident to champion the Parents Helpline to your networks, people you know, and who you work with. So I believe that's the end of this presentation. So Jill's email is here, so if you do have any further queries or are interested in any of those engagement events, then please do let us know. Yeah, we'd love to stay in touch. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing and open the floor to any questions.
Thanks, Stevie. That was great. I didn't realise how far the reach was of the organisation. It's like an amazing array of stuff that you guys do. Does anyone have any questions for Stevie? Jane, do you want to come in?
I just wanted to add, thanks very much, Stevie. I just wanted to say that I am actually a parent engagement volunteer for Young Minds here in Hackney, and I'm really happy to engage with anybody on this call, and we can see if there's anything further that you want us to do to work with your organisation. I'm here on the ground. I can deliver, you know, old school leaflets to you, things for parents to encourage them to use our service. So just to say that, you know, if you could share my email as well, I'm really happy to be in touch with people. Thank you.
Great, will do. Thanks, Jane. Rose.
Yeah, thanks. I find the Young Minds website really helpful, and all the resources are fantastic. But Jane, so I'm the participation worker at City and Hackney Specialist CAMS. I'm working on improving the participation offer for parents and carers. So I would love to stay in touch with you, and I feel like, yeah, we could work together really well. So yeah, I will take your email address and I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rose. I look forward to speaking to you.
Yeah, same.
Great, thanks, Rose. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, well, I'm going to share those slides in the newsletter, and I'll put your, is it best to put your email, Jane, rather than Stevie's for sort of local Hackney stuff?
Yes, but yes, it is for local Hackney stuff would be great. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, thanks both. That was really great. Cool. We're going to move on to our final presentation. So yeah, Stephanie, please come in and take it away.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Let me just get the slides out and then we can start from there. So I'm the climate manager at Hackney Council, and I've been at the council for over a year now, and this is actually my first major project when I've been kind of welcomed into the team, and then they just handed it to me and say, this is what we want to do, you know, go nuts with it. And we did. We had a really, really great experience. I had a really good experience myself anyway. So what we did was we delivered Hackney's first citizens climate jury back in April and May time. And since then, we've obviously done a whole load of follow-up. So we're really pleased to share with you some of so kind of like the journey, the process of how we got there, to have all of the 15 jury members, as you can see from the slide. So it's been quite an exciting experience, and I think I wouldn't say I recommend it to everyone because it was quite intensive, but it was a great experience for myself. So as you can see, this is the jury panel that we had selected and recruited for the citizens jury. So what is a citizens jury? So it's basically a group of people who were invited and brought together to learn about a certain topic or a host of topics, discussion, and weigh up ways to how we can basically, you know, ways to forward and reach a recommendation and conclusion on what they think should happen. It's a smaller process, so it's a smaller process compared to the citizen assemblies that some of you might have heard. So this one is usually made up of 12 to 24 citizens who would broadly reflect the local population. They are particularly effective to understand informed and considered public preferences on issues that are controversial or complex. So just to give you a little background of like why we wanted to do this. So when we published our climate action plan last summer in 2023, we did a whole kind of equality assessment, and we go out and do a whole load of consultation and engagement. And we noticed that, you know, different opinions on climate policies always makes it hard to agree on any tricky topics, elements in the climate action plan. And we wanted to create a strong way to involve people in climate action, which has the potential to change how the council works with the public. And we wanted to expand our, you know, recent consultations, such as, you know, the low carbon transport strategy, the green infrastructure strategy, and so, you know, high participation, but lacked input from vulnerable groups. So we really wanted to make sure we're being very transparent and inclusive when we talk to our residents in Hackney. And we wanted to build upon previous large-scale events, such as the Climate Summit that happened again last year, to discuss, you know, things around net zero goals, and the center engagement on fairness and transparency, and really focus on the how best to do it instead of the just what to do. And we want to utilize the deliberative engagement methods for improved collaboration and decision making. And of course, it is a manifesto commitment that we you know, we had to deliver to hold a localized citizens assembly on climate change. And because of all of that, you know, we decided we're going to deliver a citizens climate jury in the spring of 2024. So we went to, you know, start thinking about what we want to, you know, focus on and concentrate on when we're engaging with a relatively small, you know, group of people. We don't want to make it too complicated. We don't want to have too many questions. And because of the recent, you know, obviously incidents happening all across the country, and also especially in London as well, we want to focus on what on the question about heat waves and, you know, how we can protect residents. So we've come up with a question, which is how can Hackney Council and others make sure that residents, especially those who are most affected, are protected from very hot weather as our climate changes. So the citizens climate jury, once we have that question in place, we literally, you know, dived right in and went ahead. And what we did, you can see quite a, you know, numbers of, on the slide. So, but first thing we did was send out 4,000 letters to invite households across Hackney to take part in the jury. And from the 4,000 letters, we had 135 people who expressed their interest in taking part, which is actually quite a relatively higher percentage response compared to other local councils who've done similar projects. And on top of that, we actually had a questionnaire published, and we have 480 residents that responded to the survey, sharing their, you know, perceptions of the risk of heat waves. So personal, you know, experience, what kind of suggestions they might have when tackling heat waves inside the houses or even in public spaces. And then we went out to organizations and spoke to 21 residents where they shared their lived experience of heat waves. And it was, you know, very valuable insight and key information that we were able to feed all of the findings back into the citizens jury process. So out of the 4,000 letters, we actually selected 15 jury members to take part, and the selection was very intensive. We actually had to obviously recruit someone to do it because of the fairness, and we want to make sure it's no bias or anything like that. But they were reflective and representative of the borough's population. And then within the process, we invited 11 speakers to come to provide information and evidence about the topic. And these are all, people from various accredited organizations. We've got people from like British Red Cross, we've got people from Arab, people from the Homerton Hospital as well. So it's not just us talking to, the jury members, because sometimes it feels like there is always the council talking to them. So then they actually can learn about the issue and understand the challenges and the hurdles, and some of the solutions as well from other places. So all in all, we had about 180 person hours, contributed to the whole process, including learning, discussion, writing the recommendations throughout the sessions. And from the council's perspective, we actually involved over 50 officers, across the departments, asking them to provide feedback and insight to the recommendations provided and produced by the jury members. So it took place between April and May across 4 evenings, the whole process of the citizens jury, and the members were guided through 3 stages. So first of all, they learned about the topic through the specialists, like I just mentioned, from public, private and voluntary sectors, and then after the learning of the topic, they deliberated and discussed and came up with a kind of like a long list of recommendations, if you will, and then that got presented back to the council, and then we provided feedback from a council's point of view and say, well, this can be done, this what we're doing for this, for example. And then after we provided the feedback, finally they actually went through the decision-making process at the end of the session and came up with 9 workable recommendations. And here is the recommendation. So they've got 9 of them, and they're split into 2 categories. One is the kind of like the now and the more recent urgent ones, and then there's the next long-term solutions. So they are targeting emergency response and communication, indoor cooling off spaces, outreach for street homeless people, quick fixes to upgrade existing buildings. And the long-term solutions include creating cool routes and green spaces, investing in healthcare providers, incentivizing companies to build heatwave compliant new builds, looking at the whole built environment on new developments, and enforcing and updating building regulations. Now, just to give you a quick look on what it looked like. So this is the full report that was produced after the sessions, and very comprehensive. Like I said, it's got all the information and it can be found online. And if you want to, understand a little bit more about what the process was like, please do go ahead and have a look at it. Sorry. So with our process, we did a lot of comms engagement throughout the process, before and even after. And there were press releases that were sent out. We had the Hackney newsletter, the questionnaire I mentioned about, and we did short, social media videos. And then another press release was published after the recommendations were produced. Love Hackney features, and also we've got like a whole photo album of the Flickr account, and you can see some of the examples here. So it was quite intensive in terms of getting everyone involved within the organization, but it was a really, like I said, exciting it was a really exciting experience, and you get to work with all different types of people from across the teams. So now that we've completed, our citizens jury, the 4 sessions, came up with the recommendations. So how did we kind of continue I'd say the legacy of it, because obviously we've done it now. There's actually more work to do. So we've actually published a formal response to all recommendations, including insights from responsible parties. So we got the NHS, the Hamilton Hospital involved as well to respond to all of the recommendations. And then we prioritized the actions. Like you said, you could see, there were urgent ones and the more long-term solutions, so that we can better allocate our resources. We have already started working on some of the short-term actions. So first one, we have actually been invited to participate in a venue mobilization project with Redmond Community Centre as well as a pilot in Hackney. So there are 3 locations across Hackney across London that were chosen, and Hackney was one of them. And the project looks at, how we can enhance emergency preparedness, response and recovery in London venues for crises like floods, heat waves and fires. So it was a really good way, of responding to a recommendation and showing that we are working towards delivering the recommendations and actions. The second one we're currently doing as well is basically we're auditing existing water fountains to ensure that they're all functional and accessible to all members of the public, especially for the homeless people when they're out about and they needed access to clean drinking water. And then any of the progress after the citizen jury, what we've decided to do is we've got to track all of the progress of all of the responses and actions through the annual progress report on the council's climate implementation plan, which will be published each autumn. So the one that we did this year was published a few months back. So the next year's update program progress report, we would have some update on the actions against the citizens jury recommendation. So kind of why we're here, because I think everyone in the room definitely the members, the service users are vulnerable people, or have an element of vulnerability there. So we really want to see if there are any resources or connections in your network that could help with some of the actions that we're planning to do. Or if you've got any ideas you have to support vulnerable residents during heat waves, we just really want to hear from you. And what we can do then is to hopefully we'll be able to match you back to the service areas that are delivering the actions, how you can collaborate and connect even more. And that is actually my slide. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was great. Does anyone have any questions for Stephanie around getting involved in some of the actions or questions about the project in general? I had one or two.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask around sort of the actual I guess the process of doing a citizens jury, because obviously it sounds like it's quite intensive. Were there sort of like lessons that you and the team drew from it in terms of I guess like co-producing policy with residents and like what kind of best practices, I suppose, in terms of doing that? Because it's something that everyone talks about a lot in terms of co-production and working with people with lived experience or that kind of language, but actually doing it well, I think, is quite hard. So just wondering if you had sort of reflections on that, really.
I mean, lesson learned, we can probably write a book around that.
Yeah.
But it's been like I said, it's been a deep learning curve for us for sure, because I think we didn't realize the amount of work required to go into before going into the project. We I think naively thought that the consultant would be able to do quite a lot of the work, but that wasn't the case. I think in terms of the deliberative engagement, obviously, because it was a manifesto commitment, it was something that we were required to do, and we had to come up with a topic that is relevant, and I think that it would help with any of the policies that we've got in place. So I think first of all, you need to understand your resources and see whether there is any to help with this. Like in my slides, as mentioned, we're working with 50 people. across the organization, and plus all the external people as well. And also it wasn't a cheap exercise. So budget is another thing as well. And I think, being able to get all the people on board with what you're trying to do and not letting them feel like it's additional work, of what we're requesting of them, was quite important, because I think sometimes they will be like, oh, are you asking me to do more things? But then we're like, no, we just want to know that if it's something that we can incorporate into the things that you're already doing, or maybe prioritizing it differently. So I hope that answers your question. But I'm happy to have a separate conversation around this. We do have a couple of different departments already quite interested in the process and want to find out more whether it's something that's suitable for what they're planning to do. So we've got like the nighttime economy team and also the transport team who's currently working on their strategy, and they really wanted to find out. And I think one of the things that we learned from the process is that it might not always be the right thing or the right approach, but then there are many other ways to engage with residents, and still get the outcome that they need. So even though it was a really great exercise for us and for the people involved, sometimes there are other approaches and other methods that can actually get the most out of. So I would say that was definitely a learning point for us.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. That's really useful. Does anyone else have any other questions for Stephanie?
I just quickly wanted to say, we do have the formal response published as well, and it's all in the slides. So when John shares it with everyone, I really appreciate it if you have the time to just glance through it even, and see if any of the actions is relevant in your service area. And if you can, reach out to us and see how we can really work together, because we definitely can't do this alone, and it's quite important for us to carry on the work.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, I'll definitely share the slides in the newsletter, so everyone on the call and everyone else on the mailing list will get them. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for coming along, Stephanie. I think we'll wrap up that item there.
Thank you.
We usually just open up the floor now for the last part of the meeting, in case anyone has something they want to promote. If there's anything anyone's working on that they want to sort of share with the group, or ask a question of the group, now's your chance. So if anyone's got anything they want to share, put your hand up now, or we can close the meeting. Okay, I'm going to take that as... Oh, Rose, please come in.
Sorry, I have a question about support available that I can signpost. Is this the place to ask?
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the clinicians asked me for information. I said I would bring it here, just in terms of what is out there that could support a family in getting benefits advice. I've already told them about the Money Hub.
Yeah.
But they do have some issues with literacy.
Okay.
They're English speakers, but the literacy is an issue, and they would need quite a lot of support with any form filling, and just in accessing services, they kind of need that extra bit of help.
Yeah, I think the Money Hub do support with helping people fill out forms. The other thing I was going to mention was citizens' advice. They were the two things that came to mind. Hannah, did you have any ideas?
Yeah, I was just going to say I do know someone who could help with that. If you put your email in the chat, Rose, I can send you her contact details.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hannah. And yeah, Annabelle's mentioned the family hubs, and I think support workers and citizens advice sessions are available there. So maybe we can find a link to the Family Hubs page and send it your way, Rose.
Thank
You're
you.
already aware. Yeah, hopefully you've got some ideas to go on.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. I was just going to say, if people ever want something included in the newsletter, then just send it to me and I'll add it in. But I think we'll wrap up there. And thanks everyone for coming along. And hopefully see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.